Just waiting for a few people to get on. Again, I need to go before the Lord and just pray over an intro and outro. So I'm going to just say hi and bye for now. But we wait on the Lord for what he desires because this is his platform. This is what he wants to do. So I want to make sure it's done how he wants it. All right. So in my devotion time today with the Lord, he allowed me to see the story of Joseph in a way that I've seen it before, but just the emphasis on what God did for Joseph. Like it wasn't necessarily based on Joseph and who he was and what he did and how he spoke. It was all God. When we look through the story of Joseph, you won't even find a prayer from Joseph to God. But look where Joseph ended up. So we're going to be in Genesis chapter 39. I'm going to be reading out of the ESV version. So I'm going to read through a bit of scripture and then I'm going to get into it. But as I read it, I just need you to pay attention to the Lord and what he does for Joseph. And that it's not necessarily on Joseph, it is what God is doing in Joseph's life. Listen, chapter 39. Now Joseph has been brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, had brought him from. Y'all gonna get excited. When the Lord was, look, I gotta cut it off. The Lord, when he was talking to me about this, I was just giddy. I was just happy. But listen, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, had brought him from the Ishmaelites, who had brought him down there. The Lord was with Joseph. Hear it. The Lord was with Joseph. We know that his brothers didn't like him and put him in a pit and then sold him into slavery. From there, he went into the potter's house. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man. And he was in the house of his Egyptian master. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended to him, and he made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. From the time that he made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house. For Joseph's sake, the blessing of the Lord. I just feel it overwhelming me right now. It's about to knock me over, I know. So, he blessed, let me see, go back. The Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. The blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in his house and field. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge, and because of him, he had no concern about anything but he ate. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance, and after time, his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph. We know she pursued Joseph. Uh, Joseph wasn't going for it. With all of her attempts over and over, Joseph was having none of it and swerved on her. She didn't like that, so she lied on him and said that he raped her. When Potiphar heard about it, he put Joseph into the prison. But listen. But the Lord was with Joseph, and Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners who were in prison. Whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The keeper of the prison paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's charge because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made him succeed. Do y'all hear this? Do y'all hear this? The Lord was with Joseph. God, the Lord was with Joseph. And because the Lord was with Joseph, he was successful in everything that he did. The reason why we're talking about this today is because God has prepared you for what it is that he desires you to do. He has prepared you. Many of y'all feel it. Many of y'all feel like y'all are on the cusp of something in the way that you've never felt before. And I love this because I just recently did a live and I was talking about just thinking far beyond what you think that you should do for the Lord. But what's the biggest, what's the boldest thing that you could do for the Lord? Because that's where God is going to place you. You got to see in this whole story with Joseph, he is a slave. He is a slave. And as a slave, he is put in charge of everything in his master's house. As a slave, he wasn't concerned, Potiphar, about anything but what he ate. How could that be? Why would you put a slave in charge of everything? He was put into a prison. And you got to see, even in this case, he was put in the prison. But he was put not only in charge of all the prisoners, where they do that at? Where that happen at? Where they put the prisoner, a prisoner, in charge of all the other prisoners. He wasn't just in charge of the prison. I feel like I'm going to explode, y'all. It feels like it it feels so energetic, so wild. But he wasn't just in charge of the prisoners. Whatever was done there, he was the one to do it. He was in charge of everything. Nothing was done unless Joseph did it. He's a prisoner in prison amongst prisoners. And he was put in charge of everything. How? God is about to call you something to so amazing, so incredible, it's not even going to make sense. It's not even going to make sense. You're not going to understand it. You're going to be like, wait a minute, I don't have the resume for this. I've never done this before. How would they call me? How did they even find me? God ain't preparing you for small. God ain't sent you through this incredible journey to do something lightweight. God is calling you something big. God is calling you to something heavy, something weighty. That's going to be beyond understanding. You not going to know. People around you not going to know where you come from. How did you get this position? How did you get this space? Oh, but God has had it planned for you all this time. God has known all this time that this is where he was going to have you. When the call comes, embrace the call. Don't doubt for a second whether or not you can do it, whether or not you can't do it. Take the call, because you know why? The Lord is with you. When we look at this, we don't hear about Joseph. We don't hear about what he can do, what he can't do. We don't hear about Joseph's resume. We don't hear about Joseph's abilities. The Lord was with him, and they saw that the Lord was with him. I need to go through this. Verse 2. The Lord was with Joseph. The Lord was with Joseph and made him a successful man. His success was not dependent on what he could do or not do. It was because the Lord was with him. Not only that, it goes a little further, but says, oh, so good. His master saw, look at verse 3. His master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands. You got to hear how wild that is. You got to take a minute to reflect on that. And here's why. Do you know how great what you're doing has to be so that someone else is watching you and they see what you're doing, how you're doing, the impact of it, and the results of it, and they say, that's not that person. They don't attribute it to you. They say that's God. Do you understand how consistent you have to be? Do you have to understand how great it is that you are doing through the power of the Lord? That someone recognize you and they see the work that you're doing and they see God. That to me just blows my mind. Like, it's not just that he's good at this. It's not that just that he's great at this. When I'm looking at her, when I'm looking at him, I see something that's far beyond man. I see something that's far beyond the limitation of human beings. I see God on this thing. Whew, that's powerful. Can you imagine the way how Joseph moved, the way how he was doing things in a way that wasn't efforting, and the way that it wasn't striving. He was moving with the hand of God on his life to the point where someone else saw them and was like, I need that. I gotta have that. And put him in charge of everything. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him. He made him overseer over everything. You're the way how you are. I'm not even focusing on how you are. I'm focusing on God that's all over you. So because God is all over you, I know that everything that you tend to, God is all over it. And I want everything that I'm involved with. I want everything I'm engaged with. I want everything I have to have God over it. And because God is over you, I'm not even looking at you. I'm looking at God. You got to see what's going to happen to you in your life. You got to see that God is speaking to someone right now about you. We're going to get into that a little bit later, but you ain't got to worry because God is all over this situation. You have everything that you need. Why? Because you got God with you. You got God with you. So let's go down a little bit further. Chapter 5. Verse 5. The Lord, the second part of it. The Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. For Joseph's sake. The Lord blessed the Egyptian's house. The blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in his house and field. It wasn't just on what Joseph did that was blessed. Because the Potiphar took him in, because of Joseph, everything that belonged to the Potiphar, his house and field, was blessed. Oh, what's attached to you is going to be blessed. It isn't even about just the things that you touch, the person that comes in, that gives you that opportunity, that gives you that shot, that brings you in to that place. All that's with him is going to be blessed, and they gonna know it. They gonna know the transition from where they were before you came into their being, before you met them, and where they are at now, and all of their stuff. And they gonna realize, because of Joseph, because of this person, whew, I am blessed. What is attached to me is blessed. You gonna become somebody that's invaluable to someone else. You got to see that for Joseph's sake. For Joseph's sake. Oh, this is mine. This is my servant. Not only is this my servant, this is my friend. I got it all under control. I'm going to make sure you're secure in what it is that I've called you to do. Oh, the blessing that I give to them on your behalf, that's going to be your security. You ain't going to go nowhere. I got you. I got you in this. Go a little further. Verse 6. So he had left all that he had in Joseph's charge. You better believe he did. Why? Because I see The favor of God on him. About to get this dude everything. I don't know Joseph from a can of paint, but I see the favor of God on him. I know, I know divine when I see it. I know divinity when I see it, and it's all over him. I'm giving him everything. I'm telling you, what you're gonna be brought into, it ain't gonna make sense. Potiphar didn't even have a concern for nothing that he ate. Why? Because of Joseph? Nah. Because of the Lord. Because of the Lord. Why would I worry? The Lord is with him. Oh, that's so good. We look here that all the enemy came for him. Again, the Potiphar's wife came from him. When you get into this situation, you got to know that the weapons formed against you, they're not going to stop forming. But I tell you what, they're not going to prosper. Even with that, God is still going to be with him. Listen, he can get mad all he wants to, Potiphar, throw him in prison. But listen what happens. 21. But the Lord was with Joseph in the prison. The Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. You thought you could take Joseph's freedom. You thought you could take from Joseph. You don't understand what you thought you were doing to harm Joseph. Again, it's going to fall flat. Why? Because you can't take the Lord's presence from Joseph. You can't take the Lord's favor from Joseph. The Lord has already decided what he was going to do for Joseph. Joseph ain't got to worry. You know why? Because the Lord is with him. You ain't got to worry about nothing right now because the Lord is with you. Whatever is happening in your life, however the devil has come for you, however you are being tested, however you being tried, you got to know. You got to know it doesn't prosper. You got to know you are in the safety and refuge of the Lord. You got to know that the Lord is with you. You got to know that you got favor on you, that God is allowing all that to happen because it's going to be used for your purpose, that he doesn't waste a tear, that he's not going to waste a moment of doubt and sorrow and struggle and confusion in your life. Oh, it's all going to be used for your good. God is in control. You better believe that the earth and the fullness thereof belongs to God. God got you. You can't be sitting around looking at your situation. No matter if it's in the pit, no matter if it's in the prison, no matter where you at, you can't be looking at it and say, woe is me. You got to know God is with you. You have to know God is with you. You have to know you still have the protection of God. You still have the covering of God. Don't let the enemy distract you and get you all in your flesh and focused on the storms. You have everything you need because you have God, and nothing will pluck you out of the hands from your Lord. You safe with him. You better know it. God ain't sitting up in heaven right now, scratching his head trying to figure out what to do. God ain't trying to create another plan for you. Oh, the enemy did this, so now let me try to figure out what to do. God is watching over you right now, just like he did Job. And his preparation for you is for the call that's getting ready to happen. So this is what it is. It's preparation for this call. You got to see you got everything that you need to respond to this call that's getting ready to take place. Again, and the keeper of the prisoner put Joseph in charge of everything. Why? Because the Lord is with Joseph. The Lord is with Joseph. Gosh, the Lord is with you. The favor of God is with you. It's interesting because we don't understand how God is moving outside of our awareness. We don't understand how God is moving outside. of just what we can imagine, just what we can think, but God is on the move. God's timing is perfect because he's aligned everything up until that moment in which you're ready, and which you're ready, he's going to provide the release. This is why you don't have to worry. This is why you don't have to struggle. This is why you don't have to be in angst. You don't have to be in worry because God has you. I need you to revisit Genesis. Revisit Genesis and look at Adam. Did Adam have to worry about a job? Did Adam have to worry about the work that he needed to do? Did Adam have anything that he had to be concerned with? He had no need for concern because God got him. And that's the way how we are supposed to live our lives. I'm telling you, in this time, go back and revisit it. God created the entire world. He created all the animals. He created vegetation. He created everything that Adam would need. He created a garden, and then created Adam, and then created Adam and and placed him in that garden. Gosh, Adam didn't have to get up and worry about where to go. God already had all of that taken care of, and God already has all of that taken care of for you. For where you are going to live, for who you are going to be with, for the work that you are called to do, for all your provision that you're going to need, the food, everything God already has waiting for you. So don't worry. Don't even give it another thought. Why? Because God is with you and he got it all under control. I need you to take a minute to just consider this. He took Adam and placed him in the garden. I formed you. I ain't gonna leave you out there like that. As I'm done forming you, I'm gonna put you in the garden. Don't worry, I got everything set. I know after forming you, after you're formed, you may be thinking about what to do. Don't worry, I'm placing you in the garden. God. See, you don't understand. During this process, you were formed in the secret place with the Lord. You were formed. You are God's masterpiece. You are God's masterpiece. And he's about to place you where he needs to place you at. Because the formation up to this point is complete. Gosh, it's coming, y'all. Get ready for it. Don't lose faith. Don't lose faith. It's coming. You just got to be prepared. You just got to be ready. You don't want to hesitate. You don't want to let your doubt steer you and guide you. You got to let your faith in God guide you. Your faith in God, that God is sovereign over all and he has everything that you need waiting for you. Gosh, what he did with Adam. Adam didn't even have to go in the garden and think a step further. God already told him, this vegetation, all is yours. You can eat it. When it was time for Adam to go to work, he brought the animals to Adam. He brought them to Adam. It wasn't even like, hey, go out and go find all the animals, and when you come across them, name them. No, can you imagine that? This is spoon feeding right here. This is, hey, with the work that I have for you to do, I'm going to bring it to you. You ain't got to